My sister Evelyn had the most beautiful smile, the kind that made strangers trust her instantly and made our parents beam with pride. For 20 years, I believed that smile myself, right up until the moment she wore it while loosening the rope beneath my feet on that mountain bridge. As I fell 60 feet onto the rocks below, her words echoed after me. "It's your turn to fall." But sometimes the dead don't stay buried, and sometimes the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. What happened when I survived would destroy everything she'd built and reveal a web of lies that went deeper than anyone in our family could have imagined. But before we move back to it, comment down your age and where you're watching from, and if this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about deception, betrayal, and finding the strength to reclaim your life. The phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon, cutting through the comfortable silence of my apartment like a knife through silk. I almost didn't answer when I saw the name on the screen, Evelyn. My sister. The one I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Not since Dad's funeral when she'd cornered me by his casket and hissed that I'd killed him with my absence.
Bella?
Her voice was honey-sweet, nothing like the venom I remembered. It's been too long. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles widening. Evelyn, this is unexpected. I know. Listen, I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of therapy, actually. She laughed, a tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. Mom's not doing well. She wants us together again. All of us. I'm organizing a family healing trip, just a weekend at the old house, then maybe a hike like we used to do.
Please, Bella.
It's time we put the past behind us. The guilt hit immediately, as she knew it would. Mom had been calling less frequently, her voice growing frilier each time. If she wanted this reconciliation, how could I refuse? When? I heard myself asking. This weekend. Thomas will be there too, my husband. You haven't met him yet. There was something in the way she said it, possessive and proud. He's dying to meet you. I've told him so much about my little sister. Little sister. I was only 2 years younger, but Evelyn had always wielded those years like a weapon, reminding me of my place in the family hierarchy. Still, I found myself agreeing, booking a flight, packing a bag. The guilt was stronger than the dread. The family home squatted at the end of Sycamore Lane like it always had, paint peeling in the same places, garden overgrown with the same stubborn weeds. But Evelyn had changed. She stood in the doorway wearing a cream sweater and pearls, looking like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Her smile stretched too wide as she pulled me into an embrace that lasted a second too long, her fingers digging into my shoulders. "You look exactly the same," she said, though her eyes suggested this wasn't a compliment.
Come in.
Mom's resting, but she'll be down for dinner. Thomas appeared behind her, tall, broad-shouldered, with a kind of aggressive handsomeness that suggested gym memberships and protein shakes. His handshake was firm to the point of pain, and his eyes never left my face, studying me with an intensity that made me want to check if I had something on my cheek. "I've heard so much about you," he said, though his tone suggested none of it had been good. Dinner was an orchestrated performance. Mom came down, moving slowly, her face lighting up when she saw us together. Evelyn had prepared all of Mom's favorites: pot roast, green beans with almonds, the apple pie recipe passed down from Grandma. She kept refilling my wine glass before I could protest, her movements graceful and deliberate. "Remember the rope swing?" Evelyn asked suddenly, cutting into her meat with precision. "Down by the river?" My hand stilled on my fork. Of course I remembered. The summer I was 8 and she was 10. The rope had snapped while I was mid-swing, sending me plummeting into the water. I'd hit my head on a rock, nearly drowned before Evelyn pulled me out. She'd been hailed as a hero. I'd had nightmares about drowning for years. "You saved my life," I said carefully. Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. Did I? Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been just a few seconds slower. Funny how history has a way of repeating itself, don't you think? The words hung in the air like a threat. Mom, lost in her own world, smiled vaguely and patted Evelyn's hand. Thomas watched me over the rim of his wine glass. "I should help with dishes," I offered, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere. No, you're our guest, Evelyn insisted. Why don't you go get settled in your old room? I've kept it exactly as you left it. But she hadn't. The room was wrong in subtle ways. My old posters were there but hung at different angles, the furniture arranged differently, and there was a musty smell that suggested windows that hadn't been opened in years. As I unpacked, I noticed the closet door was slightly ajar. Inside, pushed under old winter coats, was a photo album I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I opened it. Page after page of family photos, but I'd been edited out of each one, sometimes roughly torn away, sometimes carefully covered with black marker, sometimes scratched out so violently the page had torn. In one, from my 16th birthday, Evelyn had glued her own face over mine. The cake still read, "Happy Birthday, Bella," but it was Evelyn smiling above it, Evelyn blowing out the candles. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly shoved the album back, my heart racing. Through the thin walls, I could hear Evelyn and Thomas talking in their room. "She looks nervous," Thomas said. "Good," Evelyn replied. "She should be. Did you see how she flinched when I mentioned the river? Maybe we should." "We should nothing. This has been years in the making. She'll never see it coming." I pressed my ear against the wall, straining to hear more, but they'd lowered their voices.
Sleep didn't come that night.
I lay awake listening to the old house settle, jumping at every creak, wondering what Evelyn had planned and why I'd been foolish enough to come. Morning brought false cheerfulness. Evelyn had prepared an elaborate breakfast, French toast, fresh fruit, coffee that was just a little too strong. She chattered about local updates, people from high school, anything except what had been said the night before. Mom sat between us, her presence a buffer that kept things civil. "I thought we'd do that hike today," Evelyn announced, spreading local honey on her toast with deliberate care. "Up to Cathedral Rocks. Remember how we used to race to the top?" "That's quite a climb," I said carefully. "Is Mom coming?" "Oh no, Mom's going to rest today. Just us sisters. And Thomas, of course." She smiled at her husband, who was studying his phone with intense concentration. "The weather's supposed to be perfect. Not too hot, not too cold. And the views from the suspension bridge are incredible this time of year." Suspension bridge. The words sent a chill down my spine. The old bridge at Cathedral Rocks was notorious. Narrow, swaying, with boards that had been promising to give way for 20 years. Local teenagers dared each other to cross it, and every few years someone fell. Never fatally, but always dramatically, always with broken bones and helicopter rescues. "Maybe we could do the lake trail instead," I suggested. "It's been so long since I've hiked, something easier might be." "Nonsense." Evelyn's tone brooked no argument. "You were always the athletic one. Remember? Track team, swimming, always showing off." There was an edge to her voice, sharp as glass. "Besides, the bridge isn't that bad. Hundreds of people cross it every year." "Thousands," Thomas corrected, finally looking up from his phone. I checked. Very safe. But the way he said it, the way he immediately looked back down, suggested otherwise. I wanted to refuse, to make an excuse, but Mom chose that moment to reach over and squeeze my hand. "It's so nice to see you girls doing things together again," she said, her voice wavering with emotion. "Like when you were little." So I agreed. I changed into hiking clothes, noting how my hands shook as I tied my boots. Evelyn had packed a backpack with water and snacks, humming to herself as she moved around the kitchen. She seemed genuinely happy, which somehow made everything worse. The drive to the trailhead took 40 minutes up winding mountain roads. Evelyn drove, talking the entire time about her job, her house renovations, the vacation they'd taken to Hawaii. Normal sister conversation, except for the way Thomas gripped the door handle every time she took a turn too fast, except for the way she kept checking the rearview mirror to watch me. "You know," she said as we pulled into the parking area, "there's no cell service up here. Complete digital detox. Isn't that refreshing?" The trailhead was deserted. A worn wooden sign warned about staying on marked trails, about the dangers of weather changes, about the suspension bridge. Someone had carved "danger" into the wood below the official text. "Perfect," Evelyn said, shouldering the backpack. We have the place to ourselves. The hike started pleasantly enough. The trail wound through pine forests, dappled sunlight breaking through the canopy. Evelyn led, setting a pace just fast enough to leave me slightly breathless. Thomas brought up the rear, his heavy footsteps rhythmic behind me. Nobody spoke for the first mile. The only sounds are breathing and the crunch of pine needles. Then the trees began to thin, and I could hear it, the creak and groan of metal and wood, the whistle of wind through the canyon. The suspension bridge came into view, stretching across a gap that had to be 200 feet wide, the bottom invisible in shadow. "Ladies first," Evelyn said, stepping aside with a flourish. "Tradition dictates the younger sister leads the way." "Since when is that tradition?" I asked, my mouth dry. "Since always." Her smile was sharp. "Don't tell me you're scared, Bella. You were never scared of anything. That's what made you so special, so perfect. Everyone's brave, little Bella." The bitterness in her voice was poison. Thomas shifted uncomfortably behind us, but said nothing. I looked at the bridge, narrow planks, rusted cables, the whole thing swaying gently even without anyone on it. "I'll go first," Thomas offered suddenly.
No.
Evelyn's voice was sharp. "Bella goes first. That's how it works." I could refuse. I could turn around, walk back down the mountain, drive away, and never speak to her again. But Mom's face floated in my mind, her desperate hope for reconciliation. And beneath that, my own stubborn pride. I wouldn't let Evelyn see me afraid. The first step onto the bridge sent vibrations through the entire structure. The planks were wet with morning dew, slippery under my boots. I gripped the cables on either side, rust flaking off under my palms. "Don't look down," I told myself, but of course I did. The canyon yawned below, jagged rocks visible through wisps of fog. Halfway across, I heard Evelyn step onto the bridge behind me. Her added weight made everything sway more dramatically. I froze, fingers white-knuckling the cables. "Keep going," she called, her voice carrying a note of amusement. "You're doing great." I forced myself forward, one step, then another. The planks creaked ominously. 3/4 of the way across, I felt the bridge bounce as Evelyn picked up her pace. She was right behind me now, close enough that I could hear her breathing. "Almost there," she said, and suddenly her hand was on mine where it gripped the cable. For a moment, relief flooded through me. She was helping, steadying me. Then I saw her face. She was smiling, but it wasn't a smile I'd ever seen before. It was wild, triumphant, the expression of someone about to win a game they'd been playing for years. Her grip on my hand tightened, not supportive but controlling, holding me in place. "Evelyn," I started to say, but then I heard it, a sound like a guitar string snapping. The plank under my right foot gave way. Not completely, but enough that my foot went through, my body lurching sideways. Evelyn's grip on my hand was the only thing keeping me from falling, but she wasn't pulling me up. She was holding me there, suspended, my weight putting impossible strain on the old wood. "It's your turn to fall," she whispered, her face close to mine, her breath hot on my cheek. It was always supposed to be her turn. Then she let go. The world turned into a kaleidoscope of sky and stone. I had a single moment of pristine clarity as I fell, seeing Evelyn's face receding above me, still wearing that terrible smile, seeing Thomas appear at the bridge's edge, his mouth open in what might have been a scream, or might have been nothing at all. Then gravity took over, and I was just a body falling through space, arms wheeling uselessly, the jagged rocks below rushing up to meet me. The impact drove all thought from my mind. Pain exploded through my left side as I hit a ledge about 60 feet down, the force sending me rolling, bouncing off rocks like a rag doll until I came to rest in a narrow crevice. Everything was white-hot agony and the taste of copper in my mouth. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but exist in that moment of pure suffering. Voices drifted down from above, distorted by distance and the ringing in my ears. Evelyn's laugh, light and carefree, the sound she'd make at a cocktail party. Thomas's deeper voice, urgent, worried. Jesus Christ, Evelyn, someone might have heard that. Someone might have seen. No one saw anything, Evelyn replied, her voice carrying clearly in the mountain air.
She fell. Tragique accident.
She always was clumsy, you know. Mom will be devastated, but not surprised. I tried to grab her, tried to save her, just like with the river when we were kids. The river. Through the haze of pain, memories surfaced like bubbles. That day at the river, the rope hadn't just snapped. I remembered now. Remembered seeing Evelyn's pocket knife in the grass afterward. Remembered the fresh cut marks on the rope that everyone said was just wear and tear. But I'd been 8 years old. Who would believe me? And she'd pulled me out, hadn't she? Saved me. Been the hero. We need to check, Thomas was saying. Make sure she's dead? She fell 60 feet onto rocks, Thomas. But fine. Go look if it'll make you feel better. I'll wait here. I need to get my story straight for her when we call for help.
Tragique accident.
Sister tried to save her. Very sad. I heard footsteps on the bridge, felt pebbles rain down as someone started climbing down the steep slope. I tried to call out, but only managed a wet wheeze. My ribs felt like they'd been rearranged, each breath a new adventure in agony. Blood ran from a gash on my forehead into my eyes, turning the world red. I needed to move. If Thomas found me alive, would he help me or finish what Evelyn started? The question gave me enough adrenaline to shift slightly, biting down on a scream as my body protested. I was wedged between two large rocks, partially hidden by an overhang. If I could just press myself further back. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear Thomas muttering to himself, occasionally calling out, "Bella? Bella, can you hear me?" Did he sound concerned, or was he just making sure I was dead? I pressed myself against the cold stone, willing myself to become part of the rock, invisible, gone. A shadow fell across the opening of my hiding spot. Thomas's boots appeared at the edge of my vision. "I don't see her," he called up. "She must have fallen all the way to the bottom. Into the river, maybe." "Then she's definitely dead," Evelyn replied cheerfully. "The current's strong this time of year. She'll wash up miles downstream, if at all. We should head back, call the authorities. I need to be with Mom when she hears the news." The boots hesitated. For a moment, I thought Thomas might climb down further, might find me. Then they turned and left, sending another cascade of pebbles down. I listened to them climb back up, listened to their voices fade as they walked back across the bridge. "You know," Evelyn said, her voice carrying one last time, "I think I'll suggest they dedicate a plaque to her on the bridge. In memory of Bella, who fell tragically. Wouldn't that be nice? Then every time people cross, they'll remember her. Well, remember my version of her." Their voices faded completely, leaving me alone with the sound of my own labored breathing and the distant rush of water below. I needed to move, needed to get help, but my body had other ideas. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. The last thing I remembered thinking before I passed out was that Evelyn had been wrong about one thing. Secrets don't stay buried. Sometimes they claw their way back to the surface, bloody and gasping, ready to tell their truth. When consciousness returned, the sun had moved. Long shadows stretched across the canyon, and the temperature had dropped. Every part of my body screamed in protest as I tried to shift position. My left arm wouldn't respond at all, hanging useless at my side. But I could move my legs barely, and my right arm still functioned despite the roadmap of cuts covering it. Evelyn's words echoed in my mind. Secrets should stay buried. She'd said that before, years ago, but when? The memory danced just out of reach, obscured by pain and trauma. But there was something there, something important she didn't want me to remember. Using my good arm, I dragged myself out of the crevice, leaving a smear of blood on the rocks. The world spun sickeningly, and I had to stop several times to dry heave, my empty stomach offering nothing but bile. My ribs sent lightning bolts of pain with every movement, but I kept going, inch by torturous inch, until I reached a slightly wider ledge. From here, I could see the river below, still a good 40 feet down. The cliff face was sheer, impossible to climb with 2 good arms, let alone in my current state. Above, the way back up was equally impossible. I was trapped on this ledge, bleeding, broken, waiting to die.
No.
The thought was fierce, primal. I would not die here. I would not let Evelyn win. I would not become another one of her buried secrets. A sound made me freeze, footsteps different from before. Lighter, more careful. Someone was climbing down from a different direction, following what looked like a game trail. Hope and fear warred in my chest. It could be help, or it could be Evelyn coming back to make sure the job was done. Hello. A voice called out, male but not Thomas. Is someone down there? I heard shouting earlier. I tried to respond, but only managed a croak. The footsteps came closer, and then a face appeared, weathered, concerned, belonging to a man in his 50s wearing hiking gear and a concerned expression. Jesus, he breathed when he saw me. Don't move. I'm coming down. No. I managed to whisper when he got closer. No police. Not yet. He frowned, already pulling out his phone. You need a hospital. Please. I gripped his arm with my good hand, leaving bloody fingerprints on his jacket. She'll twist it. Make it seem like, please. Just help me get somewhere safe first. Something in my face must have convinced him, because he put the phone away. There's a ranger station about 2 miles down. Closed for the season, but I have a key. I volunteer with search and rescue. Can you walk if I help? I couldn't, not really, but somehow we managed. He half-carried me down the game trail, a torturous journey that took hours. By the time we reached the ranger station, full dark had fallen. He laid me on a cot, started a fire in the wood stove, and began cleaning my wounds with supplies from a first aid kit. I should really call for help, he said, examining the gash on my forehead. You need stitches, possibly surgery for those ribs. She's already told them I'm missing, I said, the words coming easier now that I'd had water. My sister. She did this.
Pushed me.
She's probably already spinning the story, making herself the victim. He paused in his ministrations. Your sister pushed you off Cathedral Bridge? She's been planning it for years. As I said it, I realized it was true. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. The invitation, the insistence on the hike, the tradition of the younger sister going first, all of it had been orchestrated. She'll say I fell, that she tried to save me. Everyone will believe her, because that's what she does. She shapes the narrative. He was quiet for a moment, then continued cleaning the wound. I'm Jim Morrison, and no, I've heard all the jokes. I've been doing search and rescue here for 15 years. Seen a lot of accidents on that bridge. This doesn't look like an accident. It wasn't. There's a doctor in town who's discreet. Off the books, if you know what I mean. Lost his license for prescribing too many painkillers, but he still knows his stuff. I could take you there. I nodded, then remembered something. My jacket pocket felt heavy. Reaching in with my good hand, I pulled out a small key I'd never seen before. It was old-fashioned, brass, with Evelyn's initials engraved on it. Yem. Her married initials. She put this on me, I said, staring at the key. Why would she?
But I knew why.
Evidence. If my body had been found, the key would have been too. Some piece of a story she was constructing where I was the villain, where I'd stolen from her, where my death was karma or self-defense or some other lie she'd sell with that perfect smile. We need to be smart about this, Jim said. If your sister's as dangerous as you say, going straight to the police might not work. You need evidence. Witnesses. Something concrete. He was right. Evelyn had spent years, maybe decades, building her reputation as the perfect daughter, the successful sister, the loving wife. I was the estranged one, the difficult one, the one who'd abandoned the family. Who would believe me over her? But the key in my hand suggested something else. Evelyn had secrets of her own. Secrets worth killing to protect. And now I had a key to them, literally. I need to go home, I said. To my family's house. Tonight, before she knows I'm alive. Jim looked at me like I was insane, which was fair. You can barely walk. Then you'll have to help me. He sighed but didn't argue. Maybe he recognized the determination in my voice, or maybe he just knew there was no point arguing with someone who'd survived a 60-foot fall and was still making plans. The Dr. Jim knew turned out to be exactly what you'd expect. A small, nervous man operating out of his garage, hands shaking slightly until he started working, then steady as stone. He stitched my forehead, taped my ribs, put my arm in a sling, all while asking no questions beyond the medical necessary. Payment was cash only, no names exchanged. By the time we reached my family's house, it was past midnight. The windows were dark, Thomas's car gone from the driveway. They were probably at the police station performing grief, establishing alibis. Jim waited in his truck while I limped to the back door, using the spare key that had been hidden under the same fake rock for 20 years. The house felt different in the darkness, charged with potential energy. I made my way to the basement, each step on the old wooden stairs a small agony. At the bottom, I flicked on the single bulb and surveyed the space. Boxes of Christmas decorations, old furniture, the detritus of a lifetime. And there, in the corner, an old trunk I'd never seen before. The key slid in perfectly. Inside was a treasure trove of evidence, though evidence of what I wasn't immediately sure. Photographs, newspaper clippings, and in a small wooden box, a tape recorder that looked like it was from the 1980s. There were several cassette tapes, each labeled with dates and initials. My initials appeared on several. I picked up the one marked BM, River Incident, and slipped it into the recorder with trembling fingers. Evelyn's voice, younger but unmistakable, filled the basement. She doesn't know the truth. She'll never know what we did to him. It was supposed to be her in the river that day, not him. But he saw me cutting the rope, started yelling. I had to push him, had to make him stop. And then when she fell in anyway, I had to play hero. Had to pull her out. Everyone thinks I'm so brave, so wonderful. If only they knew the brave big sister let Connor die to keep her secret. But Bella doesn't remember. The head injury was a gift. She doesn't remember Connor was there at all.
Connor.
The name hit me like a physical blow. Connor Mitchell, a boy from our neighborhood who drowned that summer, found 2 miles downstream. They said he'd been playing alone, fallen in, tragic accident. But he'd been there. He'd seen Evelyn try to kill me, and she'd killed him for it. The rest of the tapes revealed more. Evelyn's plans, her manipulation of family events, her systematic campaign to isolate me from our parents. But the Connor tape was the smoking gun. Evidence of murder, recorded in her own voice. Kept as what? A trophy? Insurance? I heard a car in the driveway and quickly gathered everything I could carry. Jim helped me to his truck just as lights came on in the house. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Evelyn in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway, looking out into the night. She didn't know I was alive. But she would soon. And when she did, the real game would begin. Jim's truck idled in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner 40 miles from town, the only place we could think of where Evelyn wouldn't immediately look. I sat in the booth furthest from the windows, the stolen tapes and documents spread across the scratched Formica table. My body was a symphony of pain despite the questionable painkillers the unlicensed doctor had provided, but my mind was sharp, focused on the evidence before me. "You should eat something," Jim said, pushing a plate of eggs toward me. He'd ordered for both of us, playing the part of a concerned father with his injured daughter for the benefit of the sleepy waitress. I ignored the food and picked up the next tape, labeled BM, Memory Gaps. My hands trembled as I inserted it into the old recorder. Evelyn's voice, older this time, maybe college-aged, filled the space between us. She still doesn't remember Connor. The head injury was more severe than anyone realized. Sometimes I catch her looking at his memorial page in the yearbook with this confused expression, like she's trying to place him. It's perfect. As long as she never remembers, I'm safe. But just in case, I've been telling Mom and Dad little stories about Bella's episodes. Nothing dramatic, just enough to establish a pattern. Forgetfulness. Confusion. Mild paranoia. If she ever does remember and tries to tell anyone, who would believe the girl with a history of mental instability? Jim's face had gone pale. Jesus Christ. She's been gaslighting you for years. I laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. The perfect crime. Make your victims seem crazy, so if they ever figure out the truth, no one believes them. The newspaper clippings told Connor's story in the bland, factual language of small-town journalism. Local boy drowns in river accident. Community mourns Connor Mitchell. Safety measures increased after tragedy. His school photo showed a gap-toothed smile, freckles, the kind of kid who probably collected bugs and knew every baseball stat. He'd been 9 years old. Another tape was labeled YEM Insurance. This one was recent, dated just 6 months ago. The life insurance policy on Bella finally went through. $2 million, with me as the beneficiary. She doesn't know, of course. Forged her signature perfectly. Years of practicing her handwriting in those old journals she left behind paid off. Thomas thinks it's morbid, but he doesn't understand the long game. This was never about money, but it's a nice bonus. When she has her accident, at least Mom will be well taken care of. I'm not a monster. I love Mom. It's Bella who abandoned her. Bella, who was always Dad's favorite. Bella, who got into the better college. Bella, who... The tape cut off abruptly, as if Evelyn had caught herself spiraling into something too honest. We need to go to the police, Jim said. This is evidence of premeditated murder. Multiple murders. With what? I gestured at the tapes. These could be fiction. A creative writing project. Therapy exercises. That's what she'll say. And who am I? The mentally unstable sister with a documented head injury who's been estranged from the family for years. Meanwhile, she's the pillar of the community. You don't know Evelyn. She's probably at the police station right now, crying beautifully, showing them texts I never sent, emails I never wrote. As if summoned by my words, my phone, which I'd stupidly turned on to check the time, exploded with notifications. Missed calls from Mom, from numbers I didn't recognize, from Thomas. Text messages asking where I was, if I was okay, saying there had been an accident. And then a voicemail from Evelyn. Bella, oh my God, where are you? I'm so worried. You fell and we couldn't find you, and the rescue team says you must have been washed downstream, but I know you're stronger than that. Please, if you get this, call me. Mom's beside herself. The police are involved now. Everyone's looking for you. I told them about your struggles. How you've been talking about wanting to disappear. They're treating this as a potential suicide attempt, but I know you wouldn't do that.
Would you?
Please come home. We can get you help. Her voice was perfect, concerned, loving, just the right amount of tears. If I hadn't just listened to her confession, I might have believed it myself. She's good, Jim admitted grudgingly. But these tapes are inadmissible if they're stolen, I finished. Which they are. I broke into that trunk. I picked up another tape, this one marked with yesterday's date. This one's new. She must have made it right before I arrived. Evelyn's voice on this recording was different, excited, almost giddy. Tomorrow, it finally happens. 20 years of planning, 20 years of patience. She actually thinks this is about reconciliation. Stupid, trusting Bella. She doesn't know I've spent months setting this up. The therapist I've been seeing? I've told her all about my unstable sister, how I'm afraid of her but trying to reconnect out of love. The emails I've sent to Mom's friends, expressing concern about Bella's mental state. The anonymous tips to her employer about her erratic behavior. Even if something goes wrong tomorrow, even if she survives somehow, no one will believe her. She's already dead in every way that matters. A knock on the diner window made us both jump. An elderly man peered in, tapping again when he saw us looking. Jim recognized him, waving him away, but the damage was done. We'd been seen. We need to move, he said, already gathering the evidence. If he mentioned seeing us. Wait. I grabbed his arm, wincing at the movement. There's someone in town, a retired journalist. He investigated Connor's death years ago. Maybe he... My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello, Bella. Not Evelyn. Thomas. His voice was strained, barely above a whisper. Don't hang up. Please. I'm alone. She doesn't know I'm calling. Why should I trust you? Because I know what she is. I've always known. And I I can't do this anymore. The guilt is eating me alive. He paused, and I could hear traffic in the background. She made me part of it. The insurance fraud, the forged documents. But I swear I didn't know she was planning to. I thought it was just about money. Where is she now? At your mother's house. Performing for the police. She's very convincing. They're organizing search parties for the morning, but she's already talking about memorial services.
She knows you're dead.
Or thinks she does. I have evidence, I said carefully. Recordings of her confessing to Connor's murder. Silence. Then, Connor Mitchell? That boy from when you were kids? She told me he drowned accidentally. She pushed him because he saw her trying to kill me.
Jesus.
His voice cracked.
Jesus Christ.
I married a monster. Will you help me? Another long pause. There's something you don't know. Your father, he didn't die of a heart attack. I mean, technically he did, but Evelyn, she tampered with his medication. Replaced his heart pills with placebos for months. She told me after we were married, said it was to protect you, that he was going to change his will to leave everything to you. But I think she just wanted him gone. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. Dad. My funny, kind father who taught me to ride a bike and never missed a track meet. He'd been murdered too. I have it in writing, Thomas continued. She wrote me a letter, early in our relationship, confessing everything. She said it was proof of how much she trusted me, but I think it was really a threat.
Mutuelle assure de destruction.
If I ever betrayed her, she'd take me down too. Can you get that letter? Maybe. She keeps it in a safe in her office. But Bella, you need to know, she's escalating. She's not going to stop until you're gone. Really gone. And now that the police are involved, she has the perfect cover. If you show up dead in a week or a month, everyone will assume you've been dead since the fall. She can backdate everything. A commotion in the background. Voices. Evelyn's among them, calling for Thomas. I have to go, he whispered urgently. Don't trust anyone. She has people everywhere. The local judge is her client. The sheriff's deputy is her former boyfriend. She spent years building this network. Be careful. The line went dead. Jim drove us to a motel 2 towns over, paying cash for a room under a fake name. I spent the rest of the night transcribing the tapes, writing down every word in a composition notebook he'd bought at a gas station. My handwriting was shaky from the pain and exhaustion, but I forced myself to continue. Documentation. Evidence.
Truth.
The next tape revealed more about Dad's death. The beauty of digitalis poisoning is that it mimics natural heart failure. Dad's doctor never questioned it. Why would he? A 60-year-old man with a history of cardiac issues has a heart attack? Completely expected. The only tricky part was making sure Bella was out of town when it happened. That conference in Seattle was perfect timing. She couldn't rush home to say goodbye, couldn't see how peaceful he looked. Peaceful because I was there, holding his hand, telling him everything would be okay even as his heart stopped. He never knew. That's the kindness I showed him. More than he showed me, always favoring perfect little Bella. I had to stop transcribing to vomit, my body finally rebelling against the horror of it all. Dad had been murdered while I was presenting a paper on sustainable architecture, oblivious. I'd missed his final days because of that conference, carried guilt about it for years. But it hadn't been coincidence. Nothing with Evelyn was ever coincidence. Dawn was breaking when I heard it. Cars in the parking lot. Multiple engines. Jim peered through the curtains and cursed.
Police, he said.
3 cars. How did they? She tracked my phone. I was already gathering the evidence, shoving papers into a backpack Jim had brought. Or someone saw us. Or, it doesn't matter. We need to go. But there was nowhere to go. They were already at the door, knocking politely but firmly. Ms. Morrison?
We know you're in there.
Your sister is very worried about you. We just want to make sure you're okay. Jim looked at me. Your call. Run or face them. I thought about the network Thomas had described. The judge who was Evelyn's client. The deputy who was her ex. Even if some of these officers were clean, the system was contaminated. But running would only make me look more guilty, more unstable. Open it, I said, sitting on the bed, trying to look as injured and pathetic as possible. It wasn't hard. The officers who entered were professional, concerned. The lead, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, approached slowly, hands visible. "Ms. Morrison? I'm Officer Chen.
Your family is very worried about you.
You've been injured. We should get you to a hospital." "I'm fine," I said, knowing how I looked, bloodied, bruised, obviously not fine. "I just needed some time to think." "About what, honey?" She sat on the other bed, maintaining distance, but trying to appear non-threatening. "Your sister says you've been struggling lately, that you've talked about hurting yourself." "My sister is lying." I kept my voice steady, reasonable. "She pushed me off that bridge. She tried to kill me. She killed Connor Mitchell 20 years ago. She killed our father. I have evidence." The officers exchanged glances. I could see it in their eyes, the evaluation, the assessment. Delusional. Paranoid. Everything Evelyn had primed them to see. "That's a very serious accusation," Officer Chen said carefully. "Maybe we should go to the station, and you can tell us everything. We'll look at your evidence. And then you'll call Evelyn. Tell her where I am. Let her know exactly what I know." I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. "She's thought of everything. You already think I'm crazy. She's made sure of that." "No one thinks you're crazy," Chen lied smoothly. "But you've been through a trauma. Sometimes after a fall like that, head injuries can cause confusion." "I didn't fall. She pushed me." "Your sister has 3 witnesses who saw you fall. She tried to grab you, but couldn't reach you in time. She's devastated." 3 witnesses. I wanted to ask who, but I knew it didn't matter. Evelyn could manufacture witnesses as easily as she manufactured evidence. A word here, a suggestion there, and people would remember seeing things that never happened. Jim stepped forward. "I found her. On the rocks. Her injuries are consistent with being pushed, not falling." Chen turned to him, and her demeanor shifted slightly. "And you are?" "Jim Morrison. Search and rescue volunteer. I've seen a lot of falls from that bridge. This wasn't one." "Mr. Morrison, we appreciate your help, but Ms. Morrison needs medical attention and a psychological evaluation. It's protocol in cases like this." "Cases like what?" I demanded. "Potential suicide attempts." There it was. Evelyn's masterstroke. Even if I survived, even if I tried to tell the truth, I was now officially a suicide risk. Unstable. Unreliable. Everything I said would be filtered through that lens. "I'll go to the hospital," I said, knowing I had no choice. "But I want copies of everything I give you as evidence. I want it documented that I'm providing this voluntarily. And I want a lawyer." "Of course," Chen agreed too readily. "We'll take good care of you. And your sister will be so relieved you're safe." As they led me out, I caught Jim's eye. He nodded slightly. He still had copies of some of the tapes hidden in his truck. It wasn't much, but it was something. The drive to the hospital was surreal. Chen chatted pleasantly about nothing, while her partner drove and occasionally glanced at me in the rear-view mirror. I could feel the weight of their assumptions, their preconceptions. To them, I was already a victim, just not the kind I actually was. The hospital room smelled of industrial disinfectant and that particular brand of despair that clings to psychiatric wards. They'd put me on a 72-hour hold.
"For my own safety," they said.
The psychiatrist, Dr. Brennan, was a thin man with nervous hands who took notes on everything I said but believed none of it. "Your sister is here," he announced on the second day. "She's very concerned. Would you like to see her?"
"No."
"She's brought your mother. Your mother is quite upset about all this." Of course she had. Evelyn knew exactly which buttons to push. I could picture Mom in the waiting room, frail and confused, wondering why her daughters couldn't just get along. The guilt was almost enough to make me agree to the visit. Almost. "I don't want to see either of them." Dr. Brennan made another note. "Isolating yourself from family support isn't helpful for recovery, Bella. Your sister says she's willing to forgive everything, the accusations, the theft." "What theft?" "The family documents you took. She's not pressing charges, of course. She understands you're not well. Another brilliant move. Now I was not just unstable, but also a thief. Every truth I tried to tell was preemptively discredited. On the third day, they released me, but only into Evelyn's custody. She stood in the discharge area, wearing a concerned expression and a modest blue dress that screamed responsible caregiver. Thomas stood beside her, unable to meet my eyes. "Bella," she said, reaching for me. I stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. "I'm so glad you're okay. We're going to get you help. Real help." "Don't touch me." She lowered her hands, playing the part of the hurt but understanding sister for the nurses watching. "I know you're confused right now. The doctors say it's the trauma, maybe some latent effects from your old head injury. But we're family. We'll get through this together." The ride home was silent except for Evelyn's occasional comments about the weather, the traffic, anything to maintain the facade of normalcy. Thomas drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we stopped at a red light, he finally looked at me in the rearview mirror. His eyes were haunted. At the house, Mom waited on the porch, tears streaming down her face. She pulled me into an embrace that smelled of lavender and medicine. "Oh, Bella," she whispered. "Why would you say such terrible things about your sister?" "Mom." She showed me the emails you sent. Those horrible, threatening emails. "How could you?" I pulled back. "What emails?" Evelyn appeared at Mom's shoulder, her face a mask of sympathy. "The ones you sent over the past few months, honey. All those accusations, the threats. I didn't show them to Mom before because I didn't want to upset her, but after your episode, the police said she needed to know. I never sent you any emails. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Denial is part of the illness," Evelyn said sadly. "Dr. Brennan explained it to us. But don't worry, we're here for you." She'd manufactured an entire correspondence, probably using my writing style from old letters and texts. It would be easy enough with modern technology. Create a fake email account, backdate everything, make it look like I'd been spiraling for months. They put me in my old room, the one with the album of defaced photos still hidden in the closet. Evelyn had installed a lock on the outside of the door. "For your safety," she explained. "So you don't wander off and hurt yourself again." That night, I lay awake listening to the sounds of the house. Evelyn and Thomas were arguing in hushed voices. I pressed my ear to the wall. "This has gone too far," Thomas was saying. "Too far? We're almost done. A few more days and everything will be resolved." "What does that mean, Evelyn? What are you planning?" "Nothing. I'm not planning anything. If Bella has another accident, another episode, that's just her mental illness manifesting. These things happen with unstable people. I won't be part of this anymore." "Yes, you will." Her voice was ice. "Because you're already part of it. The insurance fraud, remember? The documents you helped forge? You're an accessory to everything. If I go down, you go down. And who do you think they'll believe? The concerned sister trying to help, or the husband who profited from fraud?" Silence. Then footsteps walking away. I had to get out. But the window had been nailed shut, recently, judging by the fresh wood shavings on the sill. The door was locked from the outside. I was trapped. The next morning, Evelyn brought breakfast on a tray. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, and a handful of pills. "Your medication," she said brightly. "Dr. Brennan prescribed them. For your own good." I recognized some of them, antipsychotics, sedatives, the kind of cocktail that would leave me foggy and compliant. "I'm not taking those." "Yes, you are." Her mask slipped for a moment, revealing the predator beneath. "Either you take them willingly or Thomas and I hold you down and force them down your throat. Your choice." I took the pills, but held them under my tongue, praying she wouldn't check. She watched me swallow, then smiled and left. As soon as the door locked, I spat them into the toilet. This continued for 3 days. Each day, Evelyn grew more confident, thinking the medication was working. I played along, acting drowsy and confused. Meanwhile, I was working on the window, using a butter knife stolen from a meal tray to slowly work the nails loose. On the 4th night, Thomas came to my door. I heard the key in the lock and tensed, ready to fight if necessary. But when he entered, his face was desperate. "I got it," he whispered, pulling a folded letter from his pocket. "The confession about your father. But Evelyn knows it's missing. She's tearing the office apart. We need to." Footsteps on the stairs. Thomas shoved the letter under my pillow and stepped back just as Evelyn appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" she asked, eyes narrowed. "Just checking on her," Thomas said, making sure she took her evening meds. Evelyn studied us both, then smiled. It was the same smile she'd worn on the bridge.
Good.
"We need to talk, Thomas. Downstairs. Now." They left, and I heard the lock click. I pulled out the letter, reading quickly in the dim light from the hallway. It was all there. Dad's murder, planned and executed over months. The forged will documents. Even details about Connor I hadn't known. How she'd held him under the water until he stopped struggling. How she'd watched from the trees as search parties looked for him. But the last paragraph was what made my blood run cold. "If something happens to Bella, it won't be my fault. She's fragile. Always has been since that head injury. Sometimes fragile things break. Sometimes they fall off bridges or downstairs or into rivers. The world is dangerous for fragile things. But don't worry, my love. I'll take care of everything. I always do." A scream from downstairs. Then a crash. I ran to the door, pounding on it, calling out. Silence. Then slow, measured footsteps coming up the stairs. Evelyn appeared, and there was blood on her hands. "Thomas had an accident," she said calmly. "He fell down the stairs. So clumsy. I called 911, but I don't think he's going to make it. Head injuries are so unpredictable, aren't they?" "You pushed him." "Prove it." She held up her phone, showing a recording app. "I have audio of him arguing with you earlier. Threatening you. I was so worried he might hurt you, I started recording. The police will be very interested to hear how aggressive he was, how you were defending yourself. Maybe you pushed him, Bella. Maybe in your confused state, you thought he was a threat. I was locked in here. Were you?" She produced the key. "This was in your pocket. You must have taken it earlier. See how confused you are? The medication isn't working. We might need to try something stronger." The sirens were getting closer. I realized with cold certainty that she was going to frame me for Thomas's death. Another piece of her twisted narrative, the mentally ill sister who lashed out violently. "The letter," I said. "Thomas gave me your confession letter." She laughed. "What letter?" "There's no letter, Bella. Just more delusions. Though I'm sure if you produce something, the police will be very interested in how you forged it. You always were good at copying my handwriting. Remember those diary entries you used to fake?" I'd never faked anything, but I understood now. Every childhood moment was being rewritten, recontextualized to support her version of reality. The police arrived. Paramedics rushed past my room to get to Thomas. I heard them working, heard the devastating words. "No pulse. He's gone." Officer Chin appeared in my doorway, taking in the scene, me locked in my room, Evelyn crying perfectly beside her, blood still on her hands from trying to help Thomas. "She killed him," I said immediately. "She pushed him down the stairs because he was going to help me expose her." Chen's expression was professionally neutral, but I could see the skepticism. The mental patient accusing the caregiver. "Tale as old as time. We'll investigate everything," she said carefully. "But right now, we need to ask you some questions about your interaction with Mr. Thompson tonight." I was locked in. "She has the key." "The key that was found in your pocket," Evelyn said softly. "She must have taken it when I wasn't looking. I just wanted to keep her safe, but she's been getting increasingly violent." Poor Thomas tried to calm her down. She trailed off, sobbing. It was a masterful performance. Even I almost believed it. They took me back to the hospital, this time to the secure wing. The letter had vanished. Evelyn must have taken it while the paramedics were working. Any evidence I'd had was gone, and now I was suspected of murder. The walls were closing in, just as Evelyn had planned. But she'd made one mistake. Jim still had copies of some of the tapes. And somewhere out there was a retired journalist who'd once investigated Connor's death. If I could just find a way to reach them before Evelyn silenced them too. But looking at the reinforced windows, the locked doors, the cameras watching my every move, I wondered if I'd already lost. If Evelyn had won the game before I even knew we were playing. In the distance, I could hear her voice in the hallway, talking to doctors, shaping the narrative, burying the truth one lie at a time. And I finally understood what she'd meant all those years ago. Secrets should stay buried. But sometimes, the dead don't stay down. Sometimes they claw their way back to the surface. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, they take their killers with them. The secure psychiatric ward had a different quality of silence than regular hospitals, thicker, more oppressive, punctuated only by distant screams and the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum. I'd been here for 48 hours since Thomas's death, and Evelyn had visited every day, playing the devoted sister while tightening her noose. But tonight was different. Tonight, the night nurse was someone I recognized. Sarah? I whispered as she entered to do the evening medication check. Sarah Coleman had been Connor Mitchell's older sister. She froze when she saw me, her face cycling through recognition, confusion, and something else. Fear? Bella Morrison. She said my name like an accusation. I heard you were here. Sarah, I need to tell you something about Connor. Don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't you dare speak his name. Evelyn killed him. The words tumbled out before she could leave. He saw her trying to kill me at the river, and she drowned him to keep him quiet. I have proof. Had proof. She destroyed it, but there are copies. Sarah's hand was shaking as she set down the medication tray. You're lying. I'm not. I know it sounds crazy. That's what she's counting on, but... No, you don't understand. Sarah closed the door, her voice dropping to a whisper. I know Evelyn killed Connor. I've always known. The room spun. What? Connor told me that morning that he was going to the river with you and Evelyn. He was excited. Evelyn had invited him specially, said it was a surprise for you. But when they pulled his body from the water, when Evelyn was being praised as a hero for saving you, she came to me. Privately. She was 11 years old, and she looked me in the eye and said, Connor saw something he shouldn't have. Sometimes people who see too much need to disappear. You understand, don't you, Sarah? Why didn't you? I was 14. Who would have believed me? And she was right there at the funeral, watching me, always watching. Then strange things started happening. My diary went missing and pages appeared around school with fabricated entries about hurting myself. My parents found drugs in my room I'd never seen before. College rejection letters arrived for schools I'd never applied to, while my actual acceptance letters vanished. She systematically destroyed my life until I left town. But you came back. 5 years ago. My parents needed me, and I thought enough time had passed. I became a nurse, kept my head down, avoided your family completely. Then last week, Evelyn showed up at my apartment. My blood chilled. When? The night before you arrived in town. She said she was concerned about a patient who might be admitted soon. Her sister. Said you were dangerous, delusional, might make wild accusations about Connor. She suggested it would be better for everyone if you were kept heavily sedated. For your own safety. She knew, I breathed. She knew I'd eventually remember. Sarah pulled something from her pocket, a small digital recorder. I've been recording her visits. Every veiled threat, every suggestion about your medication. I knew someday she'd come for me permanently, and I wanted insurance. We have to go to the police. With what? The recordings of a psychiatric patient and a nurse who'll lose her license for illegally recording conversations? Besides, Officer Chun is Evelyn's cousin by marriage. Deputy Rogers dated her in college. The judge, Harold Brennan, is Dr. Brennan's brother. She owns this town, Bella. A commotion in the hallway cut our conversation short. Sarah quickly pocketed the recorder and opened the door. Jim Morrison stood there, arguing with security. I'm her emergency contact, he was saying. I have every right to visit. Visiting hours are over, the guard replied. Then I'll wait until morning. I'm not leaving. Sarah made a decision. He's with me. I need to discuss the patient's outdoor therapy schedule with him. He's a wilderness expert. The guard reluctantly let Jim through. Once in my room, Jim's expression was grim. Thomas isn't dead, he said quietly. Both Sarah and I stared at him. He's in a coma, but alive. And about an hour ago, he squeezed his mother's hand 3 times when she asked if Evelyn pushed him. She's at the police station now, but they won't believe her, I finished. Grieving mother, wishful thinking. There's more. Jim pulled out a manila envelope. That journalist I mentioned, Robert Pike. He died in a car accident 15 years ago, single vehicle, ran off the road at Cathedral Bridge. But his widow kept his notes. She gave me these. The documents inside were damning. Photos of the rope from the day I fell as a child, clearly showing cut marks. Testimony from a hardware store owner who remembered selling a knife to 11-year-old Evelyn the day before. A statement from a witness who saw Evelyn by the river an hour before Connor's death, setting up what looked like a trap. He was building a case, Jim said. But then he had an accident, I said bitterly. Just like everyone who crosses her. Sarah checked her watch. Night shift change in 20 minutes. If we're doing something, it has to be now. Doing what? I asked. Getting you out. Evelyn's coming tomorrow with commitment papers. She's got 2 psychiatrists ready to declare you incompetent. Once that happens, she'll have complete control. You'll disappear into the system, over-medicated, forgotten, until you have another accident. Jim was already at the window, testing the locks. These are meant to keep people from jumping, not from escaping. I can get them open. And then what? I run? Become a fugitive? That just proves her point. No, Sarah said, her eyes bright with something I hadn't seen before, hope. We fight back. But not here. Not on her territory. There's someone she can't control, someone she's afraid of. Who? Your grandmother. Evelyn's told everyone she's dead, but Margaret Morrison is very much alive, living in a nursing home 3 states away. And she knows things about Evelyn that even you don't. I remembered Grandma Margaret vaguely, a stern woman who'd stopped visiting when I was 7. Evelyn had said she'd died, and I'd been too young to question it. How do you know this? I asked Sarah. Because she's been writing to me for 15 years. After Connor died, she reached out. She said she knew what Evelyn was, had always known, but the family wouldn't listen. She's been documenting everything from afar, waiting. Waiting for what? For Evelyn to finally go too far. Tomorrow's her birthday, Grandma Margaret's. 90 years old. Sharp as a tack and rich as Croesus. And guess who's not in her will? Jim had the window open now, cold mountain air flooding the room. We need to move.
Now.
Sarah handed me scrubs and a medical mask. Put these on. Walk normally. Don't run until you're outside. We made it to the parking lot before the alarms went off. By then, Jim had his truck running, and we peeled out into the night. In the rearview mirror, I could see security guards flooding out of the building. They'll track your phone, Jim said. I don't have it. Evelyn took it. Good. Sarah, what about you? Sarah pulled out her phone and threw it out the window. I'm done hiding. Connor deserves justice. We drove through the night, taking back roads, avoiding main highways where police might be watching. As dawn broke, we crossed the state line. 2 more to go before reaching Grandma Margaret. Tell me about Thomas, I said to Jim. Is he really going to make it? Doctors aren't sure. But if he wakes up, if he can communicate, everything changes. Evelyn knows that. I have a friend watching his room. But Evelyn had proven she could get to anyone. My body ached from the constant tension, ribs still screaming from my fall off the bridge. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evelyn smile as she let go of my hand. 20 years of planning, she'd said. But maybe she'd been planning even longer. There's something else, Sarah said suddenly. The day Connor died, there was another kid at the river. Younger, maybe 6. He saw everything but never said anything. His family moved away right after. Who? Billy Chen. Officer Chen's son. The pieces clicked into place. That's why she's in Evelyn's pocket. Evelyn knows her son witnessed a murder. Or was involved somehow, Jim said darkly. 6-year-olds can be convinced to do terrible things if an older kid they admire asks them. We stopped at a gas station to refuel. While Jim pumped gas, I noticed the TV inside the convenience store. My face was on the screen. The headline read, "Dangerous Patient Escapes Psychiatric Facility." The clerk was watching too. I pulled the medical mask higher and turned away, but it was too late. He was already reaching for his phone. "We need to go," I hissed to Jim. But before we could leave, a police car pulled into the station.
Not local, state police.
The officer got out, scanning the area, hand resting on his weapon. Sarah stepped forward. "I'll handle this. Get in the truck." She approached the officer with her hands visible, badge out. They talked for several minutes while Jim and I held our breath. Then, miraculously, the officer nodded and got back in his car, driving away. Sarah returned, shaking. Told him I was transporting a patient to a specialist facility. He bought it, but barely. We can't stop again. The Sunshine Acres nursing home sat on a hill overlooking a lake, nothing like the decrepit facility I'd imagined. Grandma Margaret had money, old money, the kind that bought privacy and protection. The receptionist looked up as we entered, disheveled and exhausted from driving straight through. "We're here to see Margaret Morrison," I said. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison isn't taking visitors today. Tell her Bella's here. Her granddaughter." The receptionist's eyes widened. "But Mrs. Morrison's granddaughter is already here. She arrived an hour ago." My blood turned to ice. Evelyn. Somehow, she'd figured out where we were going. "Where are they?" Jim demanded. "The garden." "But I really can't let you. We were already moving." The garden was a maze of roses and fountains, designed for peaceful contemplation. We found them by a koi pond, Evelyn in a designer dress, sitting across from a woman I barely recognized. Grandma Margaret had aged, but her eyes were sharp as ever, and they lit up when she saw me. "Bella," she said, voice stronger than her frail frame suggested. "Right on time." Evelyn turned slowly, that familiar smile spreading across her face. "Hello, sister. Fancy meeting you here. Though you really shouldn't be. The nice officers looking for you will be so interested to know where you are." "You killed Connor," I said. "And Dad. And you tried to kill Thomas." "Prove it," she said simply. "Oh wait, you can't. Because you're a delusional psychiatric patient who escaped custody. Nothing you say matters anymore." "Actually," Grandma Margaret interrupted, "I believe it matters quite a lot." She pulled out a tablet, swiping to reveal a video. "Modern technology is wonderful, isn't it? Security cameras everywhere, even in private hospital rooms." The video showed Evelyn entering Thomas's room the night he fell. The angle didn't show the stairs, but it showed her leaving, adjusting her clothes, checking her hands for blood. Evelyn's smile faltered. "That doesn't prove anything."
No?
"What about this?" Margaret swiped again. Another video, this one from a hidden camera in Evelyn's own home office. It showed her carefully adding something to a pill bottle, Dad's pill bottle, dated 2 weeks before his death. "You've been watching me?" Evelyn's voice rose, losing its controlled tone. "For years," Margaret confirmed. "Ever since you killed that cat when you were 5. "Oh, you thought no one saw?" "I did. Just like I saw you push your cousin down the stairs when you were 7. Just like I saw you poison your mother's garden when she wouldn't let you go to a party." "You're senile," Evelyn spat. "Am I? Is that why you've been trying to have me declared incompetent for the past 5 years? All those forged documents, those bribed doctors. Did you really think I didn't know?" Sarah stepped forward, recorder in hand. "It's over, Evelyn. We have everything. The tapes you made, the videos, Thomas's testimony when he wakes up." "If he wakes up," Evelyn corrected. "And even if he does, who's to say his brain damage won't affect his memory? Terrible thing, head injuries. So unpredictable." There was something in the way she said it, a confidence that made my skin crawl. "What did you do?" I asked. "Nothing. I've been here all morning, visiting my dear grandmother." "Haven't I, Grandma?" Margaret's face was stone.
You were here, yes.
"But your husband wasn't." We all turned to look at her. "The man you've been passing off as Thomas's replacement. Very convincing actor. He's at the hospital right now, isn't he?" Doing something to ensure Thomas never wakes up. Evelyn's composure finally cracked. You crazy old bitch. Security, Margaret called out, and immediately 3 uniformed guards appeared. Not nursing home security, private military contractors, by the look of them. These are my employees, Margaret explained calmly. I've been preparing for this day, for a long time. Detain my granddaughter, please. Evelyn laughed. On what authority? You're not the police. No, but they are. Federal agents entered the garden, badges out. The lead agent, a woman with steely eyes, addressed Evelyn directly. Evelyn Morrison Thompson, you're under arrest for wire fraud, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. This is insane. Evelyn struggled as they cuffed her. I haven't done anything. Bella's the one who escaped custody. She's dangerous. Actually, the agent said, we've been investigating you for 18 months. Your insurance fraud scheme alone involves 12 different policies across state lines. That makes it federal. The murders? Those are just bonuses for the state prosecutors. I felt my knees buckle. Jim caught me, supporting my weight. 18 months. I whispered. Margaret nodded. I contacted them when I discovered the first forged life insurance policy. I've been feeding them information ever since, waiting for enough evidence to ensure conviction. Your escape forced my hand. I had to reveal myself before she had you committed or killed. Evelyn was still fighting, screaming now. You don't understand. She's always been the favorite. Always the special one. Everything I did was just to level the playing field. By killing people? Sarah asked, tears streaming down her face. By killing my baby brother? Evelyn turned to her, and for a moment, the mask dropped entirely. Connor was collateral damage. He should have minded his own business. Got that recorded too, Sarah said, holding up her device. As they dragged Evelyn away, she locked eyes with me one last time. This isn't over. You know it isn't. I'll get out. I always do. And when I do... When you do, Margaret interrupted, you'll find your trust fund empty, your assets frozen, and every single person you've ever blackmailed or threatened ready to testify against you. You thought you were playing chess, dear, but you were only ever playing checkers. The garden fell silent after Evelyn was gone. I sank onto a bench, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Why? I asked Margaret. Why didn't you intervene sooner? Connor might still be alive. Dad might. I tried, she said sadly. When Evelyn was young, I begged your parents to get her help. But she was too good at manipulation, too skilled at playing the perfect daughter. They thought I was jealous, bitter. Your father eventually banned me from the house. Said I was toxic. But you kept watching. Always.
And documenting.
Waiting for the moment when she finally made a mistake big enough that people would have to listen. She touched my face gently. I'm sorry it had to be you, dear. Sorry you had to suffer for her to finally be stopped. Jim's phone rang. He answered, his face brightening. Thomas is awake. He's talking. And the fake husband? Hospital security caught him trying to inject something into Thomas's fore. He's in custody. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by a wave of grief. It was over, but at such a cost. Connor, Dad, nearly Thomas, nearly me. There's more, Margaret said quietly. Things about your parents, about why they enabled her for so long. Your mother, she knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. She chose to look away because admitting what Evelyn was meant admitting her own failure as a mother. I thought of Mom, probably at home right now, confused and lost without Evelyn to shape her reality. What happens to her? That's up to you. She's as much Evelyn's victim as anyone, but she's also complicit. Forgiveness is your choice to make. A news alert popped up on Jim's phone. The headline read, Major Insurance Fraud Ring Exposed. Local woman at center of multi-state investigation. Already, Evelyn's story was being rewritten. No longer the perfect daughter, but the criminal mastermind. I wondered how many people would now claim they'd always known something was off about her. What now? Sarah asked. Now we heal, Margaret said. All of us. And we make sure Connor's story is finally told correctly. As we sat in that garden, surrounded by roses and the sound of water, I thought about the river where it all began. How Evelyn had smiled as she cut that rope, thinking she was ensuring my fall. She'd been right about one thing. History did repeat itself. But not the way she'd planned. She'd loosened the rope, whispered it was my turn to fall. But I hadn't fallen alone. I'd taken her with me. And this time, only one of us was getting back up. 3 months later, I stood in the courthouse hallway, preparing to testify. The federal case had moved quickly. Insurance fraud was easier to prove than murder. But today was different. Today was the state murder trial. Connor's murder, specifically. Sarah stood beside me, clutching a photo of her brother. 20 years we've waited for this. She won't go down easy, I warned. I know. Her lawyer's already claiming diminished capacity. Childhood trauma. Mental illness. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? She spent so long painting you as crazy, and now it's her only defense. The courtroom doors opened. Thomas rolled out in his wheelchair, his recovery nothing short of miraculous, though he'd never walk again. His testimony yesterday had been devastating. Evelyn's confession about Dad, the insurance schemes, her detailed plans for my death. She's saying I imagined it all, he told me. That the head injury affected my memory. The jury doesn't believe her, I said, though I wasn't sure. Evelyn had always been persuasive. We entered the courtroom. Evelyn sat at the defense table, wearing a conservative gray dress, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look vulnerable, younger. She'd lost weight in custody, and her lawyer had clearly coached her to appear fragile. But when she turned to look at me, her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, predatory. I took the stand and swore to tell the truth. Evelyn's lawyer, a shark named Morrison, no relation, thankfully, stood up. Ms. Morrison, is it true you were institutionalized following a psychotic break? I was held for observation after surviving attempted murder. But you were diagnosed with acute stress disorder, correct? Hallucinations? Paranoia? Anyone who'd been pushed off a bridge by their sister might experience some stress. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter through the courtroom. The judge called for order. You claim my client pushed you, but 3 witnesses say you fell. 3 witnesses who've since recanted. I reminded him, after learning they'd been manipulated. The questioning continued for hours. Every inconsistency in my story, every moment of confusion during my recovery, was dissected and presented as evidence of my unreliability. But I held firm, and when it was over, the prosecutor played the tapes. Evelyn's voice filled the courtroom, confessing to Connor's murder in chilling detail. I watched her face as her own words condemned her. For the first time since this began, she looked afraid. That night, I stayed at a hotel under a false name, the prosecutor's idea. Evelyn had been denied bail, but she still had supporters, people who believed her victim act. I was reviewing my notes for the next day's testimony when my phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer that, Jim said. He'd appointed himself my bodyguard, sleeping on the hotel room couch. But something made me pick up. Hello, little sister. Evelyn's voice, but different. Rougher. You're in jail. This is impossible. Nothing's impossible if you know the right people. Guard owed me a favor. Isn't that right, Officer Mills? A man's voice in the background. 5 minutes. That's all you get. 5 minutes is all I need, Evelyn purred. I wanted you to know something, Bella. Tomorrow, when you testify about Dad, about what you think happened, remember that Mom was there too. Ask yourself why she never questioned his medication changes. Ask yourself why she was so eager to have you come home that weekend, why she pushed so hard for reconciliation. You're lying. Am I? Check Dad's life insurance policy. The real one, not the one I forged. Check who the original beneficiary was. Hint, it wasn't me. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, mind reeling. What did she say? Jim asked. I couldn't answer, because suddenly, things were clicking into place. Mom's behavior, her instant belief in Evelyn's lies, her strange calm when Dad died.
No.
It wasn't possible. I called Margaret. I need you to check something. Dad's original life insurance policy. 20 minutes later, she called back. The beneficiary was changed 6 months before he died. From you to your mother. Then changed again after his death to Evelyn. Mom knew, I whispered. She was part of it. The next morning, I confronted the prosecutor. We need to investigate my mother. Based on what? A jailhouse phone call from a confirmed liar. But I insisted, and eventually, they agreed to look into it. What they found changed everything. Mom had been having an affair. For years. With Dr. Brennan, the psychiatrist who'd been so eager to diagnose me as delusional. Together, they'd been planning to leave, but Dad's life insurance would make it easier. Evelyn had discovered the affair and used it as leverage, making Mom complicit in Dad's murder in exchange for silence. Your mother is here, the prosecutor told me an hour before court resumed. She wants to talk. Mom sat in a small consultation room, looking older than her years. When she saw me, tears immediately began flowing. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. Any of it. Which part? Dad's murder? Helping Evelyn frame me? Watching her try to kill me? I didn't know she was going to hurt you. She promised she just wanted you gone, out of the picture. Said you'd be happier away from all of us. And you believed her? I had to. She had those photos, the recordings of my conversations with Harold. If your father had found out. So, you let her kill him instead. Mom's face crumpled. I didn't know until after. I suspected, but it was easier not to know. Easier to believe the story she told. And Connor? Did you know about Connor? Not until recently. When she told me what she'd done, what she was planning to do to you, I tried to stop her. But she said if I interfered, she'd expose everything. Harold would lose his license. I'd go to prison. So I stayed quiet. I stood to leave. You're going to prison anyway. The only question is whether you testify against her or go down with her. That afternoon, Mom took the stand. Her testimony was devastating, not just for Evelyn, but for herself. She admitted to knowing about the medication swap, to helping Evelyn establish my instability, to standing by while her daughter planned my murder. Evelyn watched it all with an expression of betrayal that would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. When court adjourned, she managed to catch my eye. You've destroyed everything, she mouthed. No, I mouthed back. You did that yourself. But that night, everything went wrong. The call came at 3 a.m. Evelyn had escaped during a transfer between facilities. The guard she'd bribed had done more than let her make a phone call. He'd orchestrated an elaborate escape plan. 2 guards were dead, and Evelyn was in the wind. We'll find her, the FBI agent assured me. We have every airport, bus station, and train depot covered. But I knew better. Evelyn wouldn't run. Not yet. She had unfinished business. She's coming for me, I said. Which is why you're going into protective custody immediately. They moved me to a safe house, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Evelyn was already ahead of us. She'd had months in custody to plan this, to identify every weakness in their system. The attack came on the 4th night. Not at the safe house. Evelyn was too smart for that. She went after Sarah first. The call came from Sarah's number, but it was Evelyn's voice. Want to play a game, little sister? Come to the river, our special place, or Sarah dies just like her brother did. You have 1 hour. Come alone, or she's dead anyway. I should have called the FBI. Should have waited for backup. But Evelyn had Sarah, and I knew she'd follow through on her threat. She'd already killed so many. What was one more? The river looked different at night. The water was high from recent rain, rushing dark and violent over the rocks where Connor had died. Evelyn stood on the bank, Sarah kneeling beside her with a gun pressed to her head. You came, Evelyn said, sounding genuinely pleased. I wasn't sure you would. You've gotten harder since our childhood. Less trusting. Let her go. This is between us. Is it? She's the one who started all this, really. If she hadn't kept those recordings, if she hadn't involved the FBI. You killed her brother? 20 years ago. She should have let it go. But no, she had to pursue justice. As if justice means anything. As if bringing me down would bring Connor back. Sarah whimpered through her gag. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead. What do you want, Evelyn? What I've always wanted. For you to admit the truth. What truth? That you were the one who was supposed to die that day.
Connor was a mistake.
You were always the target. Dad loved you more. Mom preferred you even while she pretended not to. Everyone thought you were so special. But you weren't special. You were just lucky. So you decided to kill me? At 11 years old. I decided to level the playing field. But you survived. You always survived. Even when I pushed you off that bridge, you survived. It's like you're unkillable. Or like you're not as smart as you think. Her face twisted with rage. I'm smarter than all of you. I fooled everyone for decades. Until you didn't. Until you got sloppy, arrogant. Until you recorded your own confessions like some movie villain. Those tapes were insurance. They were vanity. You wanted someone to know how clever you were, even if you could never tell them directly. That's why you kept Thomas around, isn't it? To have an audience. The gun pressed harder against Sarah's head. Shut up. You know what the FBI psychologist said? That you're not a sociopath. Sociopaths don't need validation. You're just a narcissist with homicidal tendencies. Garden variety. Boring. I said shut up. She swung the gun toward me, and that's when Sarah moved. All those self-defense classes after Connor's death paid off. She rolled away as the gun fired, the bullet sparking off a rock where I'd been standing. I was already moving, launching myself at Evelyn. We crashed into the shallow water, fighting for the gun. She was stronger than she looked, years of yoga and Pilates serving her well. But I had rage and desperation on my side. The gun went off again, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Then Evelyn gasped, looking down at the spreading red stain on her gray dress. You shot me, she said, sounding surprised. You shot yourself, I corrected. I was just trying to get the gun away. She laughed, a wet, horrible sound. Maybe. Or maybe you're more like me than you want to admit. Maybe that's why I could never kill you. You're the only one who really understands. I'm nothing like you.
No.
You broke out of psychiatric custody. You stole evidence. You came here alone, ready to kill me if necessary. Face it, Bella, I made you just like me. You're wrong. I stood, backing away from her as she pressed her hand to the wound. You made me stronger. You made me a survivor. But you didn't make me a killer. I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app. This is being live-streamed to the FBI. They're already on their way. It's over, Evelyn. Really over this time. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. Blood mixed with river water, flowing downstream toward where Connor had died. You know what the funny thing is? She said, her voice getting weaker. I don't even remember why I hated you so much in the beginning. You were just a baby when I first thought about killing you. 3 years old. You laughed at something Dad said and he picked you up, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if you just stopped existing? That's not hate. That's sickness. Maybe. Or maybe some people are just born wrong. Maybe I was always going to be this way, and you were just the catalyst. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Sarah had found my phone, was talking to the 911 operator. Evelyn looked at the water, then at me. Remember what I said on the bridge? It's your turn to fall. I remember. I was wrong. It was always my turn. I just took the long way down. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, I thought she was gone. Then they snapped open, fierce and desperate. Tell Mom I'm sorry, she whispered. Not for what I did. For getting caught. The paramedics arrived then, pushing me aside to work on her. They managed to stabilize her, get her on a stretcher. As they loaded her into the ambulance, she caught my hand. This really is over, isn't it? She asked, sounding like the sister I'd once thought I had. Yes. Good. I'm tired of playing this game. She survived. The trial resumed with her in a wheelchair, no longer pretending to be fragile, but genuinely broken. The jury took less than an hour to convict on all counts. Life without parole, served in a maximum security psychiatric facility. Mom got 15 years for accessory to murder. Dr. Brennan lost his license and got 10. Officer Mills, the guard who'd helped her escape, 25. The network Evelyn had built collapsed entirely, each member racing to make deals, to distance themselves from her. Thomas testified from his wheelchair, his words carrying the weight of a man who'd loved a monster and barely survived it. He and I never became friends. Too much history, too much pain, but we understood each other in a way no one else could. Sarah and I scattered Connor's ashes at a different river, one with no dark memories. She spoke about the brother she'd lost, the life he never got to live. I spoke about the sister I'd never really had, the illusion I'd believed in for too long. Grandma Margaret lived another year, just long enough to see justice done. She left me everything with one condition, that I use it to help other victims of family violence, the ones whose abusers are too smart, too connected, too believable to be easily stopped. The Morrison Foundation has helped dozens of people since then. We provide legal resources, safe houses, private investigators. We believe the unbelievable, support the unsupportable. Every person we help feels like a small victory against Evelyn's legacy. I visit her once a year, not out of love or duty, but to remind myself what I survived. She's medicated now, properly diagnosed, contained. The clever monster reduced to a number in a system. Last visit, she asked me a question. Do you think Connor would forgive me? No, I said simply. Do you? I thought about it for a long moment. I forgive the child you were, who was born broken and never got help. But the adult who chose to keep killing? Her I'll never forgive. She nodded, seemingly satisfied with that answer. I still dream about the river sometimes. Both rivers. The one where it started and the one where it ended. What do you dream? That I'm falling. Always falling. And you're there, reaching out to catch me. But your hand passes right through mine, like I'm already a ghost. You are, I told her. You've been a ghost since the day you pushed Connor. You just didn't know it yet. As I left the facility, I thought about her words.
About falling.
About reaching out. About ghosts. But mostly I thought about rising. Because that's what survivors do. We rise. If someone you loved was capable of murder, would you be able to see the signs before it was too late? Or would their smile blind you to the monster beneath? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories about the darkness that can hide behind familiar faces.